Hello and welcome! So I stumbled onto an old school gardening secret. It's just this single, simple technique that honestly felt way too easy to be true. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what I did. Let's just rewind and take a painful look at the before. I'm sure some of you know this scene all too well. You start with these beautiful, hopeful little seedlings. You baby them, give them the best soil you can find, and make sure they have plenty of sun and water. And for a little while, things look great. But then, they just stall. Or worse, they grow, but only straight up. You get these long, gangly, awkward stems that look like a strong breeze could just snap them in half. That's exactly where I was. My tomato plants were a single, sad stick reaching for the sky. My peppers had maybe 4 or 5 leaves on a stem so thin I was literally afraid to touch it. And my basil? Oh, don't even get me started on the basil. It was the saddest of all, a tall, lonely stalk with a few leaves at the very top, already trying to flower like it was giving up on life and wanted to fast forward to the end. This is a super common and honestly pretty frustrating problem for gardeners. We think that any growth is good growth, and that taller has to mean better. But with a lot of vegetable plants, that's just not the case. All of the plant's energy is being funneled into one single point, straight up. It's a race to the top with zero focus on building a strong, bushy foundation. This leads to weak plants that can't support much fruit, poor air circulation that invites disease, and when it's all said and done, a really disappointing harvest. You put in all this work for what feels like a handful of undersized, sad-tasting vegetables. It's the kind of frustration that makes you want to hang up your gardening gloves for good. I was convinced I had messed up somewhere, that my soil was cursed or the sunlight in my yard was just defective. It felt like I was missing some crucial piece of the puzzle that all those other gardeners with their amazing, bountiful harvests seemed to know. I was buried under a mountain of gardening advice, but nothing was helping with this specific, demoralizing problem. My breakthrough came from the most unlikely source. I was venting about my garden drama to my elderly neighbor, a guy who's had the same ridiculously productive garden for over 40 years. He listened patiently as I described my tall, skinny plants and my gardening despair. He just chuckled and said, "Sounds like you're letting them get too big for their britches. You're letting the top boss the rest of the plant around. You gotta show 'em who's in charge." He then explained a concept I had vaguely heard of but never really got: apical dominance. It sounds technical, but the idea is actually super simple. The main, central growing tip of a plant, the very top of the stem, produces a hormone called auxin. This auxin flows down the stem and basically acts like a stop sign for all the side shoots. It's telling the plant, "Hey, don't waste energy growing sideways. All power to the top. We need to get taller and beat everyone else to the sunlight." In the wild, this is a brilliant survival strategy, but in our home gardens, where our plants don't have any competition, it's just a recipe for lanky, unproductive vegetables. And then he dropped the secret. The one cut. He told me, "You just have to pinch off that top growing tip. You cut off the boss." By making one simple cut and removing that main growing tip, you stop the flow of that bossy auxin hormone. The stop signs come down and the plant's energy is suddenly rerouted. The little side shoots that were just sitting there, dormant, get a hormonal green light to grow. And they don't just grow, they explode. Instead of one single stem, the plant is forced to branch out, creating 2, 4, or even more new stems from below the cut. This one move transforms the plant's entire growth pattern from a vertical race into a full, bushy, and much more productive structure. It was my aha moment. The solution wasn't about adding something new, it was about subtraction. It was about taking something away to set the plant's own powerful growth free. And by the way, if you're having your own aha moment right now, I'd be so grateful if you'd tap that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more game-changing tips like this, go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing. So how do you actually do this? Let me show you. This is the most important part, but I promise it's so easy. The official name for this is pinching or topping, and you can often do it with just your fingers. First, you need to find the right place to cut. Look at your plant. You'll see the main stem, and along that stem, you'll see leaves. The point where a leaf stem meets the main stem is called a node. Right above that leaf, in the little armpit, you'll often see a tiny new shoot starting to form. Those are the side shoots we want to wake up. The rule of thumb is to make your cut just above a set of healthy leaves or a node. You want to wait until the plant is a bit established, usually when it has at least 4 to 6 sets of true leaves. Don't count the very first 2 little leaves that pop up. Those are just the starter leaves. Let's run through a few common examples. For a tomato plant, especially the vining types, as the main stem grows, it will produce side stems from the nodes. People call these suckers. While some gardeners remove all of them, a great way to get a bushier plant is to top the main stem once it reaches a good height. Just find the very top growing point and snip it off above a healthy set of leaves. This stops it from growing taller and encourages all the side stems to get more robust and produce more fruit. Topping the main leader is the key to stopping that endless vertical climb. For a pepper or eggplant, these plants naturally want to form a Y shape. Once your pepper plant is about 8 to 10 inches tall, you can pinch off the very top growing tip, right above a set of leaves. This encourages the plant to split and form a sturdier V-shaped structure with 2 main stems instead of 1. As those grow, you can even pinch them again to create 4 main stems. This makes a much fuller, stronger plant that can hold way more peppers. For basil and other herbs, basil is honestly the perfect poster child for this. If you just let it go, it'll shoot up into one tall, woody stalk and go to flower, which makes the leaves taste bitter. To stop this, look at the top of each stem. You'll see a pair of large leaves with a tiny new set of leaves starting in the middle. Pinch that whole top section off, right above the next set of leaves down. When you do this, 2 new stems will sprout from the spot you pinched. You can do this every few weeks. The more you pinch, the more it branches, and you'll end up with a round, dense basil bush instead of a sad little stick. Alright, so the cut itself should be nice and clean. For those soft plants like basil, you can just use your fingernails, really. But when it comes to tougher stems like peppers or tomatoes, you'll want to use a clean, sharp pair of scissors or pruning snips. Try to make the cut about 1/4 inch above the node. And, well, that's it. That is the entire technique. I know it feels kind of brutal the first time you do it, almost like you're hurting the plant, but you have to trust the process. You're not hurting it, you're guiding it to become its best self. I was skeptical, I'll admit it. After I made that first cut on my lanky pepper plant, I felt a wave of regret. Did I just kill it? But my neighbor told me to be patient. For a few days, nothing really happened. But then, around day 4 or 5, I saw it. Tiny new green leaves were pushing out from the nodes right below my cut. Within a week, those tiny leaves had become 2 distinct new branches, growing outwards with a kind of energy I hadn't seen before. So I immediately did the same thing to my tomatoes and my basil. The result was nothing short of incredible. The basil, which was just one sad stalk, became a dense, fragrant bush within 3 weeks. I was harvesting huge handfuls for pesto, and it just kept growing back thicker. My pepper plants became these sturdy, multi-stemmed bushes that were no longer fragile, but strong and robust. Soon, they were covered in dozens of flowers that led to an amazing harvest. The single-stem tomato plants that I topped became sprawling but manageable bushes that were way easier to support and were loaded with clusters of fruit. The change was just so dramatic. My garden went from looking sparse and pathetic to lush, dense, and unbelievably productive. The plants weren't just bigger, they were fuller, stronger, and healthier. Because the branching created a more open canopy, air could circulate better, and I had fewer problems with disease. By making that one strategic cut, I had fundamentally changed the plant's hormonal signals, switching it from grow tall mode to grow everywhere mode. It completely changed how I think about gardening. So, the forgotten secret wasn't some magic fertilizer or a complicated watering schedule. It was just about understanding how a plant grows and making a single, confident cut to guide its energy in a better direction. It's the power of interrupting apical dominance. By pinching off that main growing tip, you force the plant to become bushier, stronger, and ultimately give you a far more abundant harvest. This works for so many vegetables and herbs, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, basil, mint, and even flowers like zinnias and marigolds. If you're looking at your garden right now and seeing tall, lanky plants and feeling that disappointment, I dare you to try this. I know it feels wrong to cut the top off a plant you've worked so hard on, but believe me, it is one of the most powerful things you can do to transform your garden. Be brave, grab your snips, and make the cut. I would love to see what happens. If you try this technique, please come back and share your before and after stories in the comments below. What plants are you going to try this on? Let's get a whole community of fearless gardeners going. And if you found this helpful and want more simple, game-changing gardening tips that actually work, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching and happy gardening.